So I read this blog post the other day that I've been very micro obsessed with. I sent it to a bunch of the people that I care about the most because it really was like a beautiful mindset shift. And I want to share a little bit with you about it. This blog is written by a woman whose daughter is very young. She's maybe 4 or 5, and she was diagnosed right after birth as having this genetic chromosomal defect. And it's severe. Most of the kids who have this condition never learn to walk or talk, and this woman talks about even having gone to sort of meetups or gatherings of adults with this same condition as her daughter, they're still crawling in their 30s. Anyhow, she tells this story of this town in Belgium called Geel, and in this town, something like 30% of the people in town are diagnosed with having some sort of mental illness. And the reason so many people in town are diagnosed that way is that this whole town has sort of created their brand is that they radically accept and take in and board and care for people with all sorts of mental illnesses. And they take them in, but they don't treat them as patients. They take them in with this sort of citywide agreement that they will radically accept everything about these people and their condition. So, like, there was one boarder, is what they call them. They don't even call them patients. There was one boarder who sort of had a habit of being very flirtatious with the wife of the family that he was living with, and they just sort of learned how to deal with it. There was another, and this story really stuck with me, where the guy's part of his illness was that he takes the buttons off of his shirt every day. And every day, the woman with whom he boards sews the buttons back on his shirt. And at some point, whoever was interviewing that woman asked her, like, why not just buy him a shirt without buttons? Why not just buy him a shirt that doesn't have a zipper, that has a zipper, or just pulls over? And she was like, because obviously part of who he is as a human is that he needs to take the buttons off of shirts. So this woman went on to talk about how that had struck her, this idea of radical acceptance of people as sort of perfect, not in that sort of fake image of perfection that we all think about when we hear the word perfect, but as like created by God, put here in this way, and worthy of acceptance, every single thing about them. And she talked about applying that same concept to her daughter. She talked about how she doesn't actually see her daughter as having a dis-ease. Her daughter came here this way and is actually perfect. And so it was a really beautiful balance, or holding in the same space this idea that she would get her daughter the best medical care that she could, and she and her husband would work really hard with therapies and all these things to help her daughter have the best life they could, while at the same time just like loving and accepting every single thing about her and seeing her in her sort of perfection. And I sent that to a bunch of my friends, some of whom, are moms, some of whom are not. But I was just really struck by like, what would it, like the question I couldn't escape was, what would it be like if we all extended that level of radical acceptance to ourselves, to every single thing about ourselves? What if everything was okay? What if we just decided to accept that we feel afraid in a moment, or that we are thinking this thought even when we don't want to be thinking it? I think sometimes it's really easy if you're a personal growth or self-improvement junkie to like kind of start to get really rough on yourself and constantly be trying to figure out how you can fix this and that. And one thing I know from my days, I used to say in my days at my fitness pal, was this: you can't hate yourself skinny. You can't actually critique yourself into the long-term behavior changes that it actually takes to make change in your body or to make change in your life. It is a long game, and that long game can kind of only be fueled by this energy of just like deep love for yourself. And radical acceptance seems like one of the paths to that level of deep love for yourself. I think sometimes in the space of acceptance, We can sort of just relax a little bit. We can stop pushing against what we don't like or don't want and find space and relief from the struggle, and then the energy from that to actually do the things that we really, really want to do, create the things we really want to do, experience the joy we really want to experience, love the people and be the love that we really want to be. So I wanted to share with you that concept of radical acceptance and sort of invite you to just try that on sometime this week when you're feeling a lot of struggle or a lot of tension inside. See what happens if you just decide to accept 100% of it. See if you find more space and more energy and more just joy.